The world is coming undone. Imperial flags reign across the galaxy.
Hi, welcome to Cinema Journal, and this is my first impression of the first standalone film in the anthology series of the Star Wars saga, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. A story long awaited in the franchise that is so overrated. Rogue One is the first spin-off story that is separate from the original saga that everyone knows at this point. Well, not by much if you consider its plot. Felicity Jones plays Jean Erso, a young woman who gets swept up in the intergalactic war between the Rebel Alliance and the Galactic Empire when she is recruited by the Rebels to help locate her father, Galen Erso, played by Mads Mikkelsen. The reason? Well, it's because her father happens to be the person who was the original designer of the Death Star, a mega weapon used by the Empire that has the capability to destroy entire planets. Setting out to locate him, she is joined by Rebels Cassian Andor, played by Diego Luna, and K2SO, played by Alan Tudyk, defected Imperial pilot Bodhi Rook, played by Riz Ahmed, warrior Chewit Imwe, played by Donnie Yen, and mercenary Baz Malbus, played by Jane Wen. And it is soon discovered that the blueprints contain a secret to the Death Star that can help turn the tide of the war. I think that I need to give you a bit of a disclaimer before I continue on with this review. I am not a Star Wars fan. I remember as a kid watching the original films on television whenever it comes on at around this time of year, and watching it so many times that it almost felt like it has been ingrained into my memory. And of course there is the prequels that are more or less despised by the Star Wars community. Episode 1 that I probably have watched just as many times as I did with the original as a kid and don't think much about it now. Episode 2 that I only watched once a long time ago and barely remember what it's about. And I still have not seen episode 3 to this day. Same goes for episode 7. Sorry. Okay, so you're probably wondering, why would I pay money to see this if I don't care about it? Well, you've got the trailer to thank for. It's so obviously Star Wars, and yet it's not. It looked more dirtier and grimier, and not as bright when compared to the other films. It just felt different to me. So I went to my local theater with the screening I went to see happening in the middle of the afternoon, and it was packed, including with a lot of kids. And you know what? Before I actually go into my review, let me give you my brief thoughts on the original Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. So I rewatched it within the last year as a way to update my opinion on it. Even if I didn't care about it, I still held some positive thoughts of it. I always thought that the ending space dogfight was pretty spectacular to watch, and I think it is a pretty fun movie, and a well done one at that. Now, I don't like it. What? You don't like Star Wars? How can you not like the most awesome movie in history, you uncultured prick? You need to be on your knees and be sucking his dick. Next you'll be telling us that you don't like The Godfather. Okay, calm down, and I'll give you my thoughts on Rogue One. I actually really love this film. I know that sounds so contradictory. How could I love this film but not the original? Well, there are many reasons that I have. And just so we are clear, I'm basing my thoughts on the special edition that came out of the 90s, not the original theatrical version from the 70s, which seems impossible to find right now. While the special effects, sets, and the overall look of the film is great, the characters and story leaves a lot to be desired for me. It is such a simple premise that it kinda dulled the whole epicness that the film is so obviously portraying. But my biggest problem, in which Rogue One helped me figure it out and I think does a much better job, is that the threat of the evil empire doesn't feel all that threatening. They act more like a bunch of bullies than a ruthless organization hell-bent on having an intergalactic fascist regime. You know, like Nazis. Rogue One sells the evilness of the regime, and the stakes, and the dirtiness of war. All of the characters in here are damaged, all products of a war that has lasted over their entire lives, and is all they ever known and have. They are ruthless with their tactics, yet they retain some of that humanity that is easy enough to make some sort of emotional investment in them. When Luke lost everything, it's almost like he took it as an opportunity to leave and go on his little adventure that he has always dreamed about going. There was really no sense of loss from him. The Rebel Alliance is much more fractured, like they can break apart at any moment, and when it came to the decision on what they should do that would define the third act of the film, some were reluctant to fight and others were willing to die for a just cause. This actually helped makes the stakes feel all the more tangible, especially when it is learned by the characters at the Death Star's secret that they can use to their advantage, but they know that it won't be easy, if not entirely impossible, to achieve in attaining it, and that's where I think this film triumphs over the original. The director, Gareth Edwards, has stated that he wanted to represent this as like a war film, and I think he succeeded 100%, not only with his plot, but with the look of it. And my god, is it gorgeous! Not only does his sets and locations help sell this world to me, but with his cinematography and editing, it's actually a little different in terms of how a Star Wars movie typically goes, almost like his rebellion against the episodic films. It's subtler in that regard, which people have complained about, especially with his music. Because of that, it feels more kinetic, a little more dirtier, and a little bit realistic. Its use of special effects looks so seamless, like I'm looking at an actual physical thing on the screen, from its machinery and its spaceships in the climactic battle of the final act, as well as returning characters from the original film. It's almost as revolutionary as those films, I dare say. Speaking about the final act, it is absolutely incredible. It takes up a good chunk of the second half of the movie, and it is done near to perfection. Not only is it easy to follow thanks to the wonderful editing that has to keep track of the 3 different scenarios in the same event, but even though we all know how it will end and even guess the fates of the main characters, I still felt a level of suspense throughout it because it is just paced so well, letting it take its time in seeing the characters try to succeed in what is essentially a suicide mission. I felt myself rooting for them to achieve their objective and felt a little sad with their fates, but ultimately satisfied with its conclusion. That is a mark of an enjoyably entertaining film. If there is anything I don't like about it, maybe it's the fact that we don't really get to see more of the other characters as much as I would like, but I can't forgive it because of what kind of film this is supposed to be, and there is still enough to satisfy me. A reminder again, I am not a Star Wars fan. Admittedly, I kinda look down at the people who obsess themselves with it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And even with me gushing over this one, I'm still not convinced of it. Perhaps I don't want to. But this is an excellent film from beginning to end. I was with it all the way through. I love the characters, I love the action, I love how far it went in terms of its themes that was missing from The New Hope. And people have said that probably the most die-hard fan will get the most out of this, but I think anybody familiar with at least the first Star Wars film can get just as much from it. I am so glad that I gave this a chance and proud that this is my first Star Wars film to experience in the theaters.